B'ezrat Hashem will continue. So we're at it's a little section before the 10th chapter. וזהו בחינת חטא שהוא שתי פעמים ד'. היינו שני פעמים הארבע יסודות כי הם מעורבים מטוב ורע. So the chet, the letter, we're talking about the difference between the word matzah, right, and chametz. That we said the difference between the two is just simply the letter hey and the letter chet. So the letter chet, right, it's 8, and it's 2 daleds, right? Daled is a numerical value of 4, so 2 times the dalet, you take the chet and you divide it into 2, you get 2 daleds. That's basically corresponds to the 4 elements, but it's 2 dalets because in every single thing is made out of the 4 elements, but it has from within it good and bad. And the whole thing that we're talking about, this whole process of taking the bad, the negative, the judgment, right, and finding from within it the good, it's all doing this sifting of taking out the good from the bad, right, distinguishing between the two and separating between them. Because everything is mixed. אבל מצה הוא בחינת ששוברין החטא של חמץ ומשפילין ומכניעין ארבע יסודות רעים. So matzah is basically that we're taking that chet, right, and we're breaking it, right, the chet, which is the chametz, we're breaking it, and we're subduing the 4 elements, the 4 bad elements from within it, and we're just leaving the 4 good elements, which are the 4 holy ones, which is just taking out, justifying yourself, right, by finding the kudot avot, and through that elevating all the sparks of holiness, and by doing that, taking out all the holiness back from the other side. Shem b'chinat ha'arba rashim, which these correspond to the four rivers that we spoke about, that the whole, the 4 names, the Yud Kei Vav Kei, all the matzah, everything we spoke about last time. Ve'az niftach hachet v'na'asa hey, and that's when the chet, right, the letter chet, which is, it has the top, and then it has 2 legs that are sealed completely all the way to the top, and then you break it, and it opened up, and you get the letter hey. Ki nimshach haruach haim letoch ha'arba yesodot, because you're drawing into your 4 elements that you have from within your body, right? If there's a chet, right, if it's a sin, chet means a sin, like we learned in the first lesson, Likutei Moharan, that the letter chet is chet because it means a sin. So when a person does a sin, so right now all those sparks of holiness that are from within that sin, because it's something that's written in the Torah, it's one of the mitzvahs of the Torah, so it's like a chet, it's trapped. It has no way out there. Those sparks are trapped inside. So, and there's no way that I could, right, my 4 elements now, inside of me also I have the 4 elements, right, for the good, for the bad. So it's like that chet, that state of judgment of Egypt, right? So I need to now take out those sparks of Kedusha, and I need to bring them onto myself so that I can draw that life into myself. And the only way to do that is I have to take that chet, and I have to break one of the legs and give an opening so that I can draw life. From that opening I can bring life down into the 4 elements. So that's what the difference between chametz and matzah, right? So the chametz is when it's completely sealed, it's still a chet, the sparks are trapped, and the matzah, right, which we said corresponds to the next world, corresponds to this melody, to the Yud Kei Vav Kei, to the tzaddik, to all these aspects we spoke about. That's when I break it, right, and I draw in the wind of life and subdue that storm, that Esav. כי נמשך הרוח חיים לתוך 4 יסודות ואז נעשה מדלת ה'. And then mamish, the letter dalet turns into hey, because that's right now if I have just the 4 elements, right, and they don't have the ruach chaim, that wind of life, so I'm like a daled, which is numerical value of 4, right? It's the daled, but it doesn't have the yud from within it, meaning it's missing that tzaddik, it's missing that melody of tzaddik, that yud kei vav kei, that oneness, right? So the only way to do it is I have to break the chet and then draw down. Now I have the daled, right, with the yud from within it, with that melody. That we do all this through the wind, the holy wind of life, which is the 5th element, which is the tzaddik yesod olam, that is always connected to the Torah, which means anywhere in the Torah that you learn or daven or anything, you're always connecting this aspect of tzaddik, right? And it doesn't mean that you're not going to bump into places when you learn that it's actually talking about a specific tzaddik, but it's always applying to you. Like when you're learning about Yosef HaTzaddik or Yaakov Avinu or anyone, so it's also talking about them and what they're going, right, what happened, in the past, in the story, right? But it's only coming to teach you, right? It's everything. Like Rav Nachman said, I saw a book, a Megillah that's written on me. I wanted to do your will, Hashem. right? So what does that mean? Rav Nachman says when a person, everywhere he learns, he has to apply it to him. It's not an easy thing to do, but that's what we have to do, because it's not, whenever he's talking about nations of the world or different people, tzaddikim and stuff, it's always talking about you. So the tzaddik, Yesod Olam, that is always connected, and it's interesting that it's called tzaddik Yesod Olam. Yesod means foundation, right? Yesod also is the letter Yud, and then Sod. Sod is the secret, it's 70, right? The 70, numerical value of 70, which is the Shivim Panim of the Torah, the 70 depths of the secrets of the Torah, right? So it's the Yud, Sod. That's what it means, that the Yud is the secret. So the Tzaddik is just the one that he's here to reveal to you that through this aspect of Tzaddik, you can tap into all the 70 levels of secrets of the Torah. But what is it? Depends on that little Yud. That's why Yesod means foundation, that he's the foundation of the world, because the foundation of your entire being depends on that little Yud, right? So that's the whole, that's the Sod, that's the secret. That's why it's Tzaddik Yesod, it's the Yud secret. So it's important to remember. Also Yehudi, if you think about Yehudi, is the way it's written, it's Yud, Hey, Vav, Daled, Yud. So it's wrapped with Yuds. On both sides you have the Yud, and in the middle you have Hod, right? Hey, Vav, Daled, right? So the Hey obviously is the Malchut, right? It's the Daled with the Yud in it. It's the Shlemut of Malchut, the Kedusha, that a person drew down those 10 commandments, drew down not just the 10 sayings of creation, but also the 10 melodies that were with it. He brought that Yud into his poverty, into his Egypt, by that Tzaddik Yud, and then he has the Vav, right, and Daled, and then Yud again. So it's always like the Vav is like the six Chesed, Gvura, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, the 6 Sfirot of this part of the body, right, come from the neck down, and the Daled again is the Malchut, is the kingdom, which is basically the last Sphira of Malchut out of the Yud Kei Vav Kei. So the bottom Sphira is Malchut, and then the last Yud again. So a person has to always have these Yuds, like he's wrapped, a Yehudi, our name, right? We come from Yehuda, right? Yehuda is also like, let me see over here a second. Right, so the Shlemut, Yehuda is the completion, right? Yehuda comes from lehodot, from thanks, to thank and praise Hashem, to give thanks. That's what the word Yehuda had all the sons. And we know David HaMelech is going to come out of, David HaMelech came out of Yehuda, he was the king of Israel, and Melech HaMashiach that's going to come out of him is also out of, Yehuda. It all comes from Yehuda, because Yehuda is basically the completion. You have Yud Kei Vav Kei, right? In his name there's the letters Yud Kei Vav Kei, so it has Hashem's name from within it, and it has the Daled, right? So it has the Yud, and then the Hey, which is Chochmah and Bina, and then it has the Vav, which is the Tiferet, which is those 6. The Vav is the 6 Sfirot. And then it has the Dalet, which corresponds to the last, right, the Dalavaniya, the Malchut, but it ends with a Hey, another Hey, right? And that Hey is that it's a Dalet, but it has the Yud from within it, which means it's the complete revealing of the kingdom of Hashem. Where that Dalet, that poverty, that state of Egypt and poverty that I'm in, I'm always drawing the Yud into it and turning it into a Hey. And that's what it's all like. Even Avram Avinu, or his name was Avram, and then he was called Avraham, he got the Hey. Sarai, right, it was with a Yud, and then Sarah, that Yud got a Daled. Like, it's all about the Yud and the Daled. Taking that Daled, right, Dalavaniya, the poverty that a person is in, that state of poverty, and drawing in not just the Torah, but also the Tefillah, also that melody of the Tzaddik. And of course, to never forget, that little Yud is the covenant, right? That little Yud is the covenant that Hashem made with Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, the forefathers. And that's the letter Shin. The letter Shin with the 3 legs corresponds to the forefathers. That's why it's David ben Yishai, right? Yishai is Yud with the Shin in the center. That you have to have that Torah and Tefillah, but in the center there's always the Shin, which is remembering that covenant. So it's actually like 3 Yuds, because the Shin really is just a reminder of that covenant that Hashem made with Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, that I'm looking at that tiny little nakuda, that little point of your little neshama. Even if you're consumed completely by the other side and by this physical world and your body and everything's, you're consumed by it, but I'm looking at that your little neshama, that little thing you grab, that little mitzvah, that's your essence. That's what Hashem's looking at. So that's the covenant, that's in the center. So it's David ben, he comes out of Yishai, right? And also David is numerical value of, David is 2 dalets, right? Daled, and a Vav in the center, right? So it's like, both the Daleds, we said Daled is a Malchut, it corresponds to the sphere of Malchut, right? Because Malchut doesn't have any light from itself, it's poor. So the Daled, David HaMelech, is wrapped with these two Daleds, right? He has this poverty on both sides, and he has the Vav in the Emtza, in the center, which is on the outside. If you look at David HaMelech, at his life, he wasn't even supposed to have any life in this world. It says in the Midrash, whatever the Midrash means in the depths, but it says that Adam HaRishon when he was created, he was looking, before eating from the tree, he looked throughout all the generations, all the kids that are going to come out of him, and then he saw this one baby that was going to die at birth, and he asked Hashem, who's that? And Hashem said, oh, this is David. He told him his story, he's going to be a king and that. He said, can I give him some life? And Hashem said, yeah. So he gave him 70 years, the sod, the secret, right? He gave him, and it all comes out of that, right? So that's what David HaMelech corresponds to. That's David. And then David is numerical value of Yad, which is Yudal. This is 14, which is the Yehudi, right? Yehudi is Yud K Vav, and then Daled Yud at the end. So it's the Shleimut, because we said the Yud Hey is Chochma Bina, and the Vav is the Tiferet, which is the six lower Sfirot, and then the Malchut is another Hey. The last sphere of Malchut is the last Hey, which in the word Yehuda, it's Daled Yud. It's Yud Hey Vav, and then Daled Yud, which means that's the Shleimut. It's the Daled, but he has also the Yud. So the point is to remember, also by the way, Hod, Yehudi, in the center of Yehudi, you have two Yuds, in the center is Hod, which we said is praise, and that, in the davening of Shmona Esrei, so each one of the blessings have they have a different combination, like the Yud K, Vav K has different nikudin, different dots underneath, and each one means something else. One is a Patach, one is a Kamatz, Shva, right? So the one of Hod is the Kubutz, it has the three dots that go sideways, or Shuruk. Anyhow, the three dots that go sideways, and that corresponds to Hod, and that one is only on the Tkabe Shofar Gadol Cherutenu, that when Hashem is going to come and blow the shofar of redemption, right, is going to be blown when a person comes to his redemption. It's going to be blown, and Kabetz Dechenu Ma'aba Kanfot Haaretz, collect all of our sparks of holiness from all the four corners of the world, which means bring back all those sparks of Kedusha that belong to me, from the essence, from the sharash of my neshama, that they're all now in galut, in exile. So that's what that thing. And then also modim anachnu lach, when we bow down and connect the chet, connect the mind with the nun, we're bringing down the malchut, the kingdom of Hashem, down towards the malchut, right? And we're reunifying between the chet and the yud, right? The chet and the nun, the mind and the heart. That's why you bring your mind down towards your heart. So it's not like your mind is up here and your heart's down here and they're separated. But you bring your that's why it says that you need to bow down until all of your 18 spines, right? 18 bones in the spine, like, get a bend. Why? Because you need to make sure to bring your mind so that it's on the same level as the heart, right? They need to be together. That's mamash reunifying the mind and the heart together. So that's also the Hod, that Baruch Atah Hashem, the Modim, in the Modim one, in that blessing, it's also under the name Yud Kei Vav Kei over there, you have the same dots, which corresponds to Hod. Hod is lehodot, to thanks. That's why it's in Modim, and in the blowing of the shofar. I just wanted to bring that because I thought it was interesting to see that it's not like what Rav Natan saying here. It's mamish like the essence of everything. It's like it's really, really deep stuff. V'zeu b'chinat chet. No, we did that. Okay, so now we're in the 10th chapter. V'zeu b'chinat korban Pesach, shel yado haya ikar makot bechorot. So this is all the aspect of the Korban Pesach, right? That the main, when Hashem came down and killed the first born in Egypt, right? And through that he subdued that stormy wind, that power, right? That the other side has. So it was done through this sacrifice of the Korban of Pesach. Sacrifice of Pesach, and we took the blood, right, and we put it on the doors, and then Hashem said, I saw the blood, and I'll skip over the house and continue on. Va'avar Hashem yigof ki ikar korban. So what's this whole thing with the blood and the sacrifice? Like what's the connection to what we've been learning up till now? Ki ikar korban hu levarer ruach ha'adam meruach ha'behema, dainu levarer b'chinat ruach chaim dikdusha מבחינת ruach sa'ara ruach hatum'ah. The main reason why we bring a sacrifice, the whole point of sacrifice is that Avraham Avinu and Yitzchak and everybody's bringing sacrifices in Beis HaMikdash, is all, we're trying to take that ruach chaim, that wind of life, right, that there is from within the aspect of animal, right? An animal, right, has from within it a wind of life, right? Everything, even good, bad, everything has from within it a wind of life, that holy wind of life. It's those sparks of holiness. So you need to take it out and lift it from the level that it's on and bring it up to a higher level, right? So the level of human is like speech. When a person, God forbid, does like a sin, right, he falls into a sin, what happens is that wind of life that's supposed to be in the category, in that level of human, falls into the level of animal, which is a lower level, right? You have the four elements, you have the domem, tzomeh, chaim, medaber, the earth, right, the plant, vegetation, and the animals, and then the human, which is medaber. So those are the four. So when a person falls into a sin and he takes the sparks of holiness from within those letters that in the Torah says not to do a certain thing, right? So all those letters, those sparks, they fall from the level of man, of speech, down to the level of animal, which is he'eder hadibur, no speech. That's why in Egypt, right, there was no speech. The speech was in exile. Moshe Rabbeinu was kvad peh, kvad lashon, because it was all about, the speech was in exile, meaning the speech, the blemish of speech of Adam HaRishon caused all these sparks of holiness and letters of Torah to fall into the lower level, right? From human, from where Adam was holding, it fell to a lower level, and now it needs to be elevated. So the whole thing of bringing sacrifices, right, is in order to take out, you bring the sacrifice, you take now an animal, and you're taking, it's your animal, it belongs to you, you worked hard, you got money, you bought animals, so it's your, it's your sparks of holiness. Rav Natan says everything that in your belonging, a book, a pencil, anything you have that you own, is a part of your neshama. It completes your entire being, physically and spiritually, right? And your mind is like the main guard of everything you have, right? When you lose something, you lost it, meaning your mind doesn't have control on it. You don't remember where it is, right? You can't remember where it is. You lost it. So everything that you own is all part of your being. So when a person now needs to take part of that, part of those, he needs to take part of his, let's say it's $1,500, right? The animal. He needs to take it and bring it to and then sacrifice it. What's happening is this whole process that they do in the Beis Hamikdash through the sacrifice, they're taking now the sparks of holiness that are from within that and taking it back to you and bringing it up. And that's why when you put your hands on it, you have to say all these words of vidui and confess everything that you did and say it out loud, right? It's a whole process that you do, and then the Kohanim take it. There's a whole thing that is done in order to elevate and bring up these sparks that fell into the level of animal and bring them and elevate them up to the level of human. So this is the same idea with this sacrifice, because it's כי ישראל ועכו"ם הם בחינת אדם ובהמה כידוע, כי אתם קרואים אדם ואין העכו"ם קרואים אדם, ומותר האדם מן הבהמה אין כי הכל הבל. כי כולם יש להם בחינת הבל, שהוא בחינת הבל פה, של המשכת הרוח חיים על ידי הנחה להשלים החיסרון, כי גם ומין דעלמא שהם בחינת בהמה, יש להם גם כן בחינת עריכת הרוח שהוא הבל פה. So he's saying that basically the akum, so even like Esav, for example, right? My Yetzer Hara, the headquarters of the Yetzer Hara is Esav, right? It's Amalek, but Esav is like, the Yetzer Hara that every person has from within him, his difficulties, his challenges, and all that. It's all stems from this one thing called Esav. It's called akum, the general aspect. It's right. You have the klipa of Esav and Ishmael, so the general world aspect. It's called, akum, which is Ovdei Kachavim Mazalot, idol worshippers, but they all just get their koach, their strength from their sar, like the angel, which is called Esav. So they also have a hevel, right? They have a hevel peh. Right? We see them speaking. They have animals. Animals also, Reb Natan says that they have like a very strong hevel, where they breathe in and out really strong, right? They make loud sounds and stuff. So they have also this hevel, and it's a powerful one. So that corresponds to this storm, this power that there was when we were in that state inside Egypt, right? That we need to now go and subdue this. So that's the whole thing of taking the animal, taking the blood, and putting it on the mashkofim, and Hashem, right, bringing the sacrifices in order. Hashem is now coming to subdue, to wipe out the firstborn, which corresponds to this powerful ruach chaim, but it's a stormy wind, right? And we need to subdue it so that Am Yisrael could come out of this captivity and leave Egypt, right, and get out. אבל מי יודע רוח בני האדם העולה היא למעלה ורוח הבהמה יורדת היא למטה. So there's obviously a big difference between, even though we see that Esav does have a strong ruach chaim in that, right? There's a big difference between the soul, the neshama, right? That Yaakov Avinu and Esav. It's two, they were in the same stomach. They grew up in the same father, the same house, same, upbringing, but it's two completely different worlds, right? Two different worlds, like. כי רוח האדם, מבחינת עריכת הרוח של ישראל, שהוא רוח חיים דקדושה, עולה למעלה ומקבל וממשיך רוח חיים מן הקדושה מחי החיים. So the wind of life of a Yid, right, of Israel, which is the holy wind of life, it goes up. It goes up and draws down the source of life from the one and only, from Hashem. ורוח הבהמה יורדת למטה. And the wind of the behemah, of the animal, of Esav, right, it goes down. Which means, in other words, it's talking about like a person, is let's say a person, falls, right? He falls into a chet. So on one hand, it's like a really bad thing. And, Esav has a lot of strength, right? A person's in a lot of taivas, right? He's having a hard time with overcoming the things he needs to overcome. So it seems to be, right? It looks on the outside that Esav is in charge here, right? He's in power, right? And the good is the tiny little bit, there's a little percentage of good that I can grab, that I'm holding on to, right? But the majority, it seems to me, in the world and also on a personal level, that the majority is bad. So it seems like they're in charge. So Reb Natan says that it's kind of like, in order for the world to exist, in order for things to run the way Hashem wants them to, in the time of galut, in the time of exile, Hashem sets it up in a way where the evil force has power, and he has this. That's why it's called a wind of storm, right? And the Ruach Chaim, the holy wind of life, it seems like a very small. You see people that are like trying to be holy, and they're very quiet, right? The people that are out and rich and like, just going after this world, it seems like they're like, popular and advertisements, and like you hear about them all the time, and the ones who are there's. So that's the way it's set up. In order for us to have a freedom of choice, right? In order for us to be able to go into this world, and obviously we're going to fall a lot, and it's all what's going to happen is that whole, when it gets switched, when we're about to come out of Egypt, we're going to, like what happened when all the firstborn got subdued? All the firstborn of the Jews became higher priests, right? The Kohanim, it ended up being the tribe of Levi, but when we came out of Egypt, it was supposed to be that Ruach Chaim de Kedusha, that wind of life, that tzaddik was supposed to be represented by all the firstborn. They were going to be the ones that worked in the Beis Hamikdash, and the ones that taught us Torah and judged us favorably, and like they were going to be like the true leaders of the generation. That's what it was supposed to be. So that's what really comes out of it. So when the other side gets subdued and we come out of Egypt, then all of those times that it made us fall, and all that supposed conquering, that it was conquering us, right, completely with, overcoming us with all of our elements and our taivas and everything, all that is going to flip and turn into Kedusha. And that's going to give us a huge light, right? So actually all their greatness is going to be our greatness. That's what Reb Nachman explains it in a different Torah. I won't get into it now, but it's about the song that we're going to sing when Mashiach comes, Az Yashir. So it's all about that they're going to be so blown away that all their greatness they had, all these years, they thought they were like on top and they were the most important, the power of the bad in the world, right? And really they're going to realize that all that was just for us. Because once it gets flipped, we're going to get all those sparks of Kedusha that they've been holding on to, and all the bad from within it is going to get wiped out. They're not going to have it. It's just going to burn them, because the source, the source of the Torah is fire. Right? Everything, the words of the Torah are like fire. So fire, right now, that's their source of life. They're getting their source of life from the sparks of holiness, those letters that fell over there. But as soon as it gets flipped and we take them out, they get burnt away. Like if something gets not kosher, like in the kitchen, through fire, you're cooking and something gets mixed. How do you kosher it with fire? Right? The way it got, if it got not kosher with fire, you kosher it with fire. So the source of the purification, right, comes from the fire. So the other side, right now, it's only getting strength because that fire is like on a tiny little coal. It looks like it's burning. It's a little nekudot avot. Doesn't seem like it's a lot, but once it gets flipped, we're going to realize it was the exact, right, everything was upside down. Really, it's the highest light. And V'zat Hashem, we'll get it soon. כי רוח האדם בחינת עריכת הרוח של ישראל הוא בחינת רוח חיים דקדושה עולה למעלה ומקבל וממשיך רוח חיים מן הקדושה מחי החיים. ורוח הבהמה יורדת למטה. כי עריכת הרוח של הבהמה בחינת אומות העולם יורדת למטה לארץ, כי אין להם שום חיות. כי הם בחיים קרויים מתים, כי רוחם היא רוח שערה, שהוא רק גדול בשעתו לפי שעה. That's basically what we said up until now. כי רוח הבהמה היא בבחינת עריכת הרוח, שערה שממשיכין העקום על ידי הנחה. כנראה בחוש שרוח ונשימה של הבהמה גדול מאוד, כי הם הומים וגונחים בקולם תמיד, ואין להם דיבור, רק קול. וכל קולם הוא כמו מי שגונח ומתענח בקול גדול, ומעריך הרוח והנשימה מאוד. כנראה כל זה בחוש. היינו שהם בבחינת עריכת הרוח של העקום, שהוא גדול בשעתו בבחינת רוח שערה, אבל הסוף מסער גופי. So the animals, right, they correspond to that Esav, right? The same thing I just said all about Esav and the Yetzer Tov and Yetzer Hara, the good sparks and the bad. So the animal corresponds to that Esav. And because it has the same way that the Esav, the Yetzer Hara, has from within him right now all those sparks of holiness, all those letters that fell from the sins a person did, right, all the falls he had. So same thing, an animal corresponds to that also. A person has an animal, right, it corresponds to that Esav, and from within the animal it has to belong to you, something right, that you were given to as a present or you worked for it, but it has to be in your possession. You have to take that now and bring it to the Beis HaMikdash, and through that you can elevate now and take all the sparks of holiness that fell from a person's sin. Meaning, like taking that animal is like it's a physical process that we used to go in the Beis HaMikdash and do, and now in the Galut, no Beis HaMikdash, no Karbanot, so we don't, like Kivyachol, we don't have the opportunity to do it. How do we now go and take the sparks out? So we can still do it. That's what we're learning about, basically. That we can still do it with this whole process. כי על ידי החטא נמשך חס ושלום אחר רוח אטומה בחינת רוח שערה, דהיינו שנתערב רוח חיים דילה שהוא בחינת רוח האדם ברוח הבהמה. ועל כן הרשעים בחיים קרויים מתים, מחמת שנסתלק מהם הרוח חיים. And for this reason it says that the Rishayim, people who are always walking around putting themselves down and focusing on their bad and speaking bad and just, right, they're just that bad, the Russia's tape is playing in their mind all the time. So even when they're alive they're considered dead, because they're completely cut off from any source of life. They're cutting themselves off through the power of their speech. They're cutting themselves off from life. So even though it looks like they're alive on the outside, really they're not. ועל כן תיקון החוטא על ידי הקורבן, שעל ידי זה מתברר רוח האדם מרוח הבהמה, ואז יש לו כוח להמשיך הרוח חיים על ידי ההנחה שמתענח ומתחרט. So for this reason, this is why a person brings the animal, and he elevates the Ruach Chaim, the source of life, the human life, the human wind of life that there is from within that fell into the animal level because of the sin. So he elevates it now and brings it up, and through the anacha also. We said that when a person gives a sigh, right, anacha, so he's sighing about the sin that he did, that he fell into it, right? That's but it's a coming from holiness. He's drawing back now all the sparks of holiness. And all this is the aspect of the sacrifice of that we brought for Pesach, in order to come out of the impurity of Egypt. And for this reason we bring it from the sheep and from the goats. That's where the Korban Pesach can come from, sheep and goats. Because of the Seir Ezim, the goat corresponds to Esav, which Esav was called a Ish Sa'ir, right? So it's not just hairy, but it's Sa'ir Mlashon comes from the word Sa'ara, which is storm. So Sa'ir is Mlashon Sa'ara. So that's the goats, it's called the Seirim. And Kvasim corresponds to the hairs. Like it says in at the end of the 8th lesson, which this halacha is based on, Reb Nachman says that the sheep correspond to all of the little sarot. So the little sarot are talking about the tiny little nekudot avot that a person grabs. That's the sarot. That's what they correspond. Reb Nachman has a whole halacha on the specific inyan of these little hairs. And these are the two that we bring for this sacrifice of Pesach in order to subdue Esav Ish Sa'ir, right? This aspect of this storm wind, and right, the aspect of the Rav of the Klipa, the head of the other side, the evil force. Which all of this corresponds to the firstborn in Egypt. So it's interesting that like the way you subdue Esav, how is it with the hairs, the tiny little hairs, the Sarot, right? It's brought down from Kabbalah. The Sarot come from a very, very high place. It corresponds to the beard hairs in Atik. Atik is like the light that's going to be revealed when Mashiach comes. Atik Yomin, right? The hidden Torah from Atik, right? Oraita Atika Stima, that's going to be revealed when Mashiach comes. So that the beard, Kivyachol, right? It's all just for us to, words so we can understand. But the hairs of the beard in Atik, that's like where the 13 attributes of mercy, they come out of the 13 points of the beard, right? And out of there, each hair corresponds to these tiny little hairs. So nothing shows from the Arizal. He brings that it's mamish corresponds to like the tzitzit and all the tiny little hairs that there are. It's like our little actions, our little good deeds that we do are these. Every little one is one of these little hairs, and they all correspond to this. They come from this very, very high level of mercy. That from there is where these 13 attributes of mercy come down into the physical world, and that's what Hashem is looking at. So when a person also looks at it in that way and realizes these tiny, tiny little good deeds that I did, even though there's so much bad, it's covered with bad, right? Like with the chicken we spoke about, that he's pecking from within, he's just pecking from within a huge pile of trash, and what's he getting? A tiny, tiny little thing, but that's his life, that's how he lives, right? And that's the animal that wakes you up in the morning. He was chosen to be the one that wakes you up, because what's going to wake you up from that Egypt, from that darkness, and bring light into your life? Dafka, those tiny little things, that's your source of life, that little yud, right? So those correspond to little hairs, right? Those tiny little hairs, and that's what can subdue the power of Esav, this storm, this wind, right? It seems like it's impossible to overcome it, but the way that we can mamish subdue it is by that tzaddik yesod, the yud sod. The secret is with the yud, right? Those little hairs, finding that little nekuda of mitzvah, and focusing only on that, not looking at all the bad, not looking at what you did wrong, just judging the whole thing favorably. And through that, mamish, a person can subdue it. And that's why we brought on Pesach these two sacrifices, one from the goat, which correspond to the Esav, and the other one from sheep, which corresponds to all these little hairs. And it's also all has to do with the tikkun of speech, the hairs, because we said that the sheep is corresponds to the oral Torah, because the sheep, it says in the Gemara, kvasim lelvushech, right? That that Rachel Imenu, our mother Rachel, she was called Rachel, also means a baby sheep is called a Rachel. And Kirachel lifnei gozezeh, they called Rachel like a sheep lying before the ones who are coming to cut her wool, right? So Rachel, Leah is Tefillah, and Rachel is Torah Sheba'al Peh, the oral Torah. Chazal say that she's compared to a sheep that, like you come from in the oral Torah, you're always cutting all the halachas. You come into the Gemara oral Torah and you start learning, and you take out of it tons and tons of halacha comes out of it, so you know how to live and how to walk in the world, right? So that's like you take these little hairs, right? It's all mixed up. You have to go. It goes through a whole process, but then you get garments, you get clothes. So in a physical way, it's the same thing, and also spiritually, you get, when you're learning the Torah and you do this birur and you get these halachas out of it, you're getting this, you're getting these garments, these spiritual garments. It's called Chaluka derabanan, right? It's all the vessels that you're creating in order to receive that light of Mashiach. The more vessels you have, the more light you'll be able to receive. And we said the oral Torah is the speech, right? Torah Sheba'al Peh Karinanlah. So it's a whole fixing of the speech, and that's why it's all the inyan of Pesach. So you have these two. They have the Esav, and you have, which is the goats, and you have the sheep, which is talking about the Nekuda of Tzaddik, right? Yaakov Avinu, Yosef Tzaddik, that little point of good. And through that we mamish take out from Esav that holy wind of life, that aspect of the Rav de Kedusha, which is the Rav de Kedusha, which is like that little tzaddik, like the Rav, like we said, Rav is all the sparks of holiness are called Rav. Esav said, Yesh li Rav, I have the Rav, I am holding all the sparks. And Yosef Tzaddik, Vayasof Yisrael Bar also the letters Rav, he took out all the sparks from Egypt. So it's mamish subduing that and drawing down that Rav, all the holy sparks onto yourself. Shubchinat Bechorei Israel, which is all corresponds to the aspect of the firstborn of Am Yisrael, the Bechor, the firstborn of Am Yisrael, which corresponds to the sechel, the memory. Anyhow, we'll continue. Have a great day, guys.